What up, Search fam? Sharde here. Grab your tea. Let's get started. Hello, my dear ones. Welcome back. It's a Tuesday. We're here. We're queer. We have no fear. I don't know. But today I have some eleuthero root and honeybush tea with some peppermint that I made. I did this yesterday because I wasn't feeling well, and I liked it so much we did it again. So, cheers. One of the things that I have made sort of my why around this channel has been showing my authentic self. Like, when I think about how I show up on my YouTube channel, I have been really adamant about, like, I want the thing to be being my authentic self, to invite people to feel like they're not alone. And sometimes living into one's authenticity is a challenge. And I'll tell you why. So what I experience, or am experienced, have experienced, whatever we want to call it, we have been and continue to experience, is this unpacking oneself. And what I mean by that is that as we work to be more authentic, to really show up as the fullest expression of ourselves in the world, it requires a lot of deep diving into oneself and disentangling the things that we thought made us and calling them into question. So I was thinking about it yesterday as I was talking to someone, and I stand by, the fact that I'm an introvert, right? But I am what I call a personable introvert, in the sense that when people meet me, if I'm out in social settings, I turn on my peopliness. So I am super, super kind, very engaging with other people. And especially when I was working a job as an educational trainer, where I would have to put on these large conferences, help put on these large conferences, and would be on stage in front of like a sea of people and all that stuff, people would not believe me that I was an introvert because of how I presented in front of people, in front of a crowd, which, is part and parcel to who I am, because I've been on stage almost all of my life. Like, I started singing in the choir at church at 3. So, and doing speeches and things like that, all the things you have to do when you grow up in a Black Baptist church, I did them. And I love being on stage. I love acting. I love anything performance based, which kind of seems like it runs antithetical to the fact that I don't like to people. But so people would mistake the fact that I know how to turn myself on, and you guys see that because I'm doing it in front of the camera, like I'm doing the thing that I would do in person when I'm engaging with people, right? And they would go, no, you can't be an introvert because, you are so energetic, and, you talk and things like that. And I'm like, girl, give me some time. Let me hit about 20 minutes into this thing, and you'll find me in a corner somewhere acting like I am holding up a wall. So, but I did for a second call into question, okay, so I have for the longest identified as an introvert and understood myself as an introvert all of my adult life, really. I don't know that I did that as a child, but I was an introvert child because, one, I'm an only child and my mom's an introvert. So I spent most of my time in my own head. And I think that's one of the characteristics of being introverted. I draw my energy from being by myself. Like, I love being by myself. I am my best friend. And I have a rich interior life, right? So, I have to fix myself and amp myself up to be in front of people, to be in social settings, to do my videos, although this is not quite as bad because I'm only I'm talking to all through a camera. But I had to disentangle for a second whether I might be less of an introvert than I thought I was. I mean, the conclusion I came to is no, that is not quite true. But it's the fact that we ask ourselves these questions. There are certain things that we tend to believe about ourselves. We hang our hat on these characteristics and identify ourselves by them. But I think when we are endeavoring to look at ourselves and to present ourselves in the most authentic way, it inevitably requires us to ask whether these things that we've hung our hat on and defined ourselves by are actually who we are. Because what we will find is that, there are just certain things that we create our persona around, and then we find that they don't hold up, and that these things that we have defined ourselves by are not necessarily who we are. They are a byproduct of our social settings, of the experiences that we've had, and sometimes the trauma that we've been engaged in and sort of taken in, that we have created this persona around ourselves as a coping mechanism, as a tactic of survival. And then, we wonder, who am I in the process? Who am I actually? And I have had that moment today because I was reflecting, and I had seen a meme that was talking about just that, like what it means to be yourself, and whether the self that we identify as is who we are authentically because of our experiences. And it struck me that maybe I don't quite understand and know what my authentic self feels like because of these various experiences that I've had, where I have had to close down and compartmentalize parts of myself in order to survive in the setting I was in. And for me, this was a coping mechanism to keep me from either being rejected or disparaged for who I was, right? And these things, whether we realize it or not, it happens in the home. It happens with the people we think are our friends as kids. Teachers say things and they don't necessarily realize the sort of impact that it's going to have on the child. And I think one of the clearest examples of that for me would be when I was in high school. I am a classically trained vocalist. I trained from 6th grade through my first year of college singing classical vocal music. I love it. It was my first love. Music has been my first love. And I love performing. I love singing. And I wanted to compete. For the longest, choir was my life, right? And so when I asked to compete, because that's what you do as a vocal musician, you compete. And so I wanted to compete for a scholarship, a vocal scholarship, because even at the time, one of the things I wanted to do was to go to I wanted to go to Fisk University so that I could try out to be a Fisk Jubilee singer. That's how much of a choir nerd I still am, if we're honest. But my choir director at the time, she was like, well, your voice is just okay. And so she also did not put as much time and effort into me because I did not have, by her account, a stellar voice. I worked hard to be a musician, because I loved it. But in comparison to some of her other students that they just had stellar and phenomenal talent, I didn't get as much attention. And what that did to me is it made me not sing. I haven't sung in front of people in God knows how long. I don't sing in front of people, as a matter of fact. That pretty much spooked me into not wanting to sing in front of people. I sing all the time when I'm at home. I sing in the car. I do all the harmonies. I do the thing. But you would be hard pressed to get me to sing in front of other people, and even less than I don't really talk about my life as a musician, right? Because of it. So it's important to sort of begin to sit with the things that we say about ourselves, how we identify ourselves, and ask the question whether this is actually me, or whether this is something that I've grasped onto that doesn't actually reflect my authentic self. I think that once we untangle that, we see just how much our surroundings, how much society, how much, having to sort of protect ourselves in various ways shapes who we present to the world, and even sometimes shapes the person we are when no one's watching. Like, how many times do we act out these characteristics even in private, maybe because we're afraid of ourselves. Like, we are afraid to be our authentic selves to ourselves. And when we begin to disentangle that, it is scary, because the thing that you've hidden, the things about yourself that you sort of put behind the mask for the general public, you don't know whether, your fears were valid, and that they'll still become something that you need to shield yourself from. You don't know if you start acting authentically in a particular area, whether people, even your loved ones, will receive it well. And but I mean, for me at least, it's worth it to try, because at the end of the day, I want to be able to sit with myself and look myself in the face and be like, that's you. Like it or loathe it, that's you. And as I have done that in certain areas of my life, being more of myself and not being frightened away by maybe my own, definitely my own emotions, because I know that in certain settings I come off as very blank, right? Very emotionless, because on the inside I feel a lot. I feel very deeply. I am kind of sensitive, but I don't show that on the outside, because I'm afraid that people will take advantage of it, that people will ridicule it because people don't give you space for really being in your feelings and feeling your feelings as they happen. I am very blessed because I do have spaces and people with which I engage in the authentic versions of myself that accept it as it is and love me for it, right? And I think that helps a lot for me to be able to show that with those people in a safe space, to get comfortable being myself, so that when I go out into other spaces, I can feel comfortable showing up as the fullest expression of myself, whatever that means. And then more importantly, knowing that whoever I am for and whoever is for me will not be put off by who I am. And if there are things like that I say and do that do come off in a way that I don't intend it, that those people will be able to let me know those things as they happen in love. Because sometimes people say things to you and they tell you that you've been offensive or things like that, and it's because you offended them. It's not necessarily because of what you said was offensive, but they don't care for this part of you that you are expressing and exhibiting. So there is a level of discernment and also in knowing whether somebody's, I don't know, somebody's anger or offense is displaced or not, whether they're projecting something deeper about themselves onto you, or whether you legitimately were being mean, or you legitimately said something that was offensive. And I think the more that you know yourself, the more that you engage with people who love you and who accept you for who you are and can and do correct you with love, it helps you to gain a discernment in whether you are engaging with someone who is sort of trying to project onto you, manipulate your actions for themselves, or whether this is something that you actually need to be mindful of. But I think the more you sit in yourself, the more that we sit in ourselves, the more that we question who we are, why we act the way we do, and put it up against our experiences and determine whether these are authentic portions of ourselves or whether there are things that we have done for another reason that no longer serve us, then it will deeply impact how we interact with the world around us, interact with others, and also how we will discern our interactions with other people. Okay, so I really liked pulling a card last week, so I want to pull another one, and this is coming from the Reflect, Release, Recharge deck from Pink Lo Maine, Black woman artist, visual artist out of Houston. I love her work. I actually have some of her work in my house. So we're gonna pull us a card. Y'all are gonna pull us a card. Okay, here we go. Alrighty, pick a good one. I'm excited. Alrighty, got it. All right, here we go. This one. I am overflowing with achievement. I am overflowing with achievement. That's a good card to remind us that we are possible. Ooh, I love that. We are absolutely possible, and we are authentically expressing ourselves in the world. Eee. All right, my loves, I hope you all have a wonderful week, that this resonated with you. Let me know if it did. Let's talk about it some more in the comments. I love you. I pray that you have a wonderful week, that the sun shines through your soul, and that you find some time to sit with yourself and be in your own home frequency. Have a wonderful week. I'll catch you in the next one. Bye.